Это российские солдаты или нет?
Это были местные силы самообороны.
Crimean Askers. The war began with the occupation of Crimea. The world failed to respond properly to Russian aggression then. At the time of the occupation, we can say the Ukrainian army almost has not existed. I do remember the Minister of Defense speaking at a session of the Verkhovna Rada and saying that we formally have 41,000 soldiers in the armed forces of Ukraine. In fact, there were no more than 6,000 combat-capable ones. All the equipment, airplanes are without engines, tanks are not functioning. In other words, Yanukovych's regime, with its Minister of Defense Lebedev, who was a Russian patriot, did everything to destroy the armed forces. Though if the following claims, such as citizens, the country is in danger, take up arms, came out of Kiev, and it would at least start quickly distributing weapons. For example, Crimean Tatars had no weapons at all. It was 10 times harder for Crimean Tatars to get even a hunting rifle then. So to say, for Russian-speaking people, that was the strategy. They were scared of the Crimean Tatars and how to fight. I believe Ukraine will draw conclusions then. Russia's special operation to seize Crimea began on February 20th, 2014. It was 3 days before the end of the Winter Olympics in Sochi. Russia took advantage of the Maidan revolution and the weakness of the Ukrainian state to attack. On February 23rd, Sevastopol actually came under the control of the occupiers. The so-called People's Mayor was elected at a rally in the city, and self-defense units were created. We received information that on February 26, people from all over Crimea were gathering near the Parliament of the Autonomy to hold a powerful rally there, demanding the deputies support the appeal of the Verkhovna Rada of the Autonomous Republic to Putin, asking for Crimea to be a part of Russia. We had little time left. The chairman of Majlis, Rafat Chubarov, was in charge of the situation there. They quickly gathered our compatriots. Although there were pro-Russian supporters throughout Crimea, mostly brought from Sevastopol in buses. Then some Cossacks from the Krasnodar region were also brought. In short, they gathered as many as they could. There were about 4,000 of them. We had no special preparation, but informed regional majlises immediately that such a situation was going to burst out. That's why we had gathered much more than 10–12,000 people near the Verkhovna Rada and quickly pushed them back. They pledged they would not insist on adopting such an appeal to Putin. And that was the end of it. It was probably one of the mistakes. We shouldn't have gone away.
Сейчас видим, сторонники Меджлиса уже вытеснили сторонников пророссийских организаций. Сейчас они находятся возле медицинского колледжа и на дороге по улице Карла Маркса. С их сторон все продолжают летать и бутылки, и камни, и палки.
The beginning of the occupation was the morning of February 27th, when green men with armored vehicles appeared on the streets of Crimea and administrative buildings were seized. Crimean Tatars completely ignored the referendum. Crimean Tatars completely ignored all political processes, including elections to local councils, the so-called State Council of Crimea, as well as the State Duma of the Russian Federation. Since the beginning of the occupation of Crimea, and within the next 8 months, the Ukrainian state flag flew over the building of Majlis of the Crimean Tatar people. It was an important message to the Crimean residents and also to the occupation authorities that there is an entity that officially supports Ukraine in the occupied Crimea.
Офіційно підтримує Україну.
Since then, the peninsula has remained under the rule of the aggressor country for almost 10 years and is struggling to preserve its people and national identity. It was all in 2014, when the first Moskal Katsamb's vehicles and the military appeared. It became clear to me that it was the end. They would not leave. They would have to be driven away. The road to Crimea went through Donbass then. I didn't tell my family, but my wife only knew where and why I was heading to. She was surprised that I was accepted. I ended up in a sniper unit. Up to today, I am considered to be a sniper. My call sign is Uskut. It's an old name. Nowadays, in Crimea, it is called Privitne village in Sudak, though the historical name of it remains Uskut. Now I am a deputy battalion commander with the captain's rank. The battalion commander is Lenur Islamov.
На початку окупації Крима
At the beginning of occupation of Crimea, I realized that we had to do something, but no one could give us weapons and start resistance. I left for Kiev, still being aware that one day we would have to take up arms and defend what was mine.
коли прийдеться взяти зброю і відвоювати своє.
I went to war at the age of 45. My relatives are all in Crimea. Only my friends are here.
Тобто я
I've asked none about their opinion.
відношення к цій справі.
I've just joined, and that was it. Any war brings death. Though Islam allows, not only permits, but even prescribes to defend oneself, own dignity, honor, religion, home, homeland, etc.
Свій дім, свою батьківщину. Якщо
If we do not win this war now,
не переможемо в цій війні,
sooner or later, our children will have to end it up.
доведеться закінчувати цю війну.
For the first time in many years, Allah, glory to Him, has given us the opportunity to take up arms and return home as winners with arms in our hands, neither as victims of the Russian regime nor as anything else but as winners. We must take advantage of it. If you have a chance, come to us. If you have an opportunity, join us. I suggest there won't be any other chance like this. As one of our Crimean uncles said back in 2014, he was an elderly person and as old as I am now. I asked if it was hard for him. He responded, Allah gave us the opportunity to fight and kill our enemies, and we will not be punished for that. Do you really think I'm going to miss it? Allah let us take revenge for our grandparents, great-grandparents, and all the humiliation that we and our parents experienced when we had returned to Crimea. Today, our brothers are in prison, our sisters are in prison, our children are orphaned. We can take revenge for all this now. We have to take advantage of it. Otherwise, we'll never forgive ourselves. When leaving Crimea, my internal passport of Ukraine was about to expire. I needed to paste a photo in it. I took advantage of this situation at the border. When a Katsap border guard asked me the purpose of my trip to Ukraine, I showed my passport and told him about my desire to replace it. I had only one small bag with me. Meanwhile, I was heading to the location of the Donbass Battalion in Novi Petrivci, Kyiv. It was substantially important for me to leave Crimea ASAP. I should take the children out, then leave myself and directly provide armed resistance. My wife accepted my decision as she knows me. She took it for granted. If I had not joined the army, she would not have understood how it was supposed to be a matter of course. She could think something happened to me, that I was not that Veldar she got married with. She was not ready for that. She was ready to my join the army. Today, Crimean Tatars are actively involved in the war against their historical enemy, Russia. For example, both a separate volunteer battalion, Crimea, and the 48th Separate Assault Battalion, named after Noman Chelebidji-Khan, were formed among the Crimean Tatars. On the peninsula itself, more and more activists and agents are joining the partisan movement. According to our preliminary data, about 2,000 Crimean Tatars serve in the armed forces of Ukraine. Here is the question, if it is few or a lot. I would say that considering the fact the majority of the indigenous people are in the occupied territory, and the community is a maximum of 300,000 people, then 2,000 is enough. There are many Crimean Tatars among the officers, according to our data. There are about 20 officers, such as colonels, lieutenant colonels, and majors, including also officer-scientists involved in the training of senior commanders of the armed forces of Ukraine. There are many positive changes in our country. As we see, Crimean Tatars are assigned to various positions in the administrative institutions. They began to participate in all of it. Today, Rustem Umerov has become the Minister of Defense. I hope that he will hold this position with dignity. He, as a son of our people, will help to raise the honor of our people. Prove to everyone that we are worthy people.
Що там? Народуй землю.
Ukrainians were wary of us. We had neither the time nor the opportunity, as our people had just returned to Crimea. It took them a lot of time and effort to organize their lives. Sometimes I found it funny to hear opinions that were fake.
Смішно чути думки такі несоответствуючі дійсності.
First of all, they knew very little about us, almost nothing. I mean, no one was familiar with our history at all.
Так не знав.
They weren't even aware that our ancestors defeated Russians. There were many giant battles where we fought together against the same enemy. The fact that they are surrounded by a small part of us makes them realize that those people came back for reasons. We have a rich history, deep roots, and we share the same land. I was deeply impressed by the following situation. As you know, we can't eat pork. Just imagine that the Muslim serves in the Ukrainian army in a country where forbidden for Muslim product has a cultic significance for Ukrainians. When comrades who I served with, realized that I was not allowed to eat pork. They started to take care of me when possible. They would get me food like fish and canned fish. I felt so embarrassed when strangers were involved in helping me. There you immediately notice who is who. And it's very difficult to put on an image or a mask of yourself. When you were about to go out to the battlefield or the front line or somewhere else on a mission, at the very moment you begin to realize who is who. You see everything in their eyes and gestures. When being directly on the battlefield, you understand what type of person they are. When I went to war, at first I was kind of exotic fruit for people. Someone with an incomprehensible name, Vildar, and a surname that is difficult to pronounce, as well as some incomprehensible call sign. Moreover, I was from Crimea. They thought I could be a spy. You know, there was so much distrust there. Nevertheless, Russian propaganda introduced this split. Even our propagandists, spies and agents, were always fueling this tension and playing on it. You know, the enemies of Ukraine in Crimea were the Crimean Tatars, who seemed to have seized all the land there, who literate Yalta, who built on the Ipatri mountain, who planned to set up some kind of terrorist camp, and the Islamic fundamentalism. We appeared to be so-called enemy. This opinion stuck deep inside the average Ukrainian. So the idea was as follows: who is the enemy? It's Tatars. It's like that in war. In fact, when you are at war, it doesn't really matter what language you speak. It doesn't really matter what nationality you are. Today, we have people of many different nationalities that are standing together with us in the same row in the war. Unfortunately, these conventions arise among our so-called politicians on topics such as what language you speak, who prays and what God to, or who supports and which side. Someone supports Palestine, the other Israel. Roughly speaking, this is all that we have here beyond the front line. That is important. But when you are at war, in the same trench, dugout, the barrack, you drink from the same cup, eat with the same spoon, and then you literally watch this facility and pass it to the next person. At war, who you are and your actions are important. Can your comrades count on you? Can the personnel count on you? Can they rely on you? Do they feel secure next to you when being under fire? For example, when there is shelling or the enemy is attacking, everyone prays. Everyone prays. Literally, everyone prays. No matter if you are atheist or not, everyone prays to someone they know. To emphasize nationality is not relevant nowadays. When we put the relationship between Crimean Tatars, Ukrainians and Jews or Georgians on some kind of leverage, that would be wrong. We should unite people, not divide them. We are united by an idea. We have an idea as to free Ukraine from evil. In our units, there are people of all nationalities who can think. I was in the Lviv brigade. We were together with them, for example, on Easter. They came and brought us both Easter cakes and eggs. We ate them. I congratulated them on Easter. We had Eid al-Adha. We slaughtered a lamb and called them for a feast. Everyone came and ate soup shurpa and kebab. In turn, they congratulated us, and that's all. It was the Ukrainian National Flag Day. We greeted them, meanwhile, they greeted us. We have the Crimean Tatar Flag Day, and they greet us, and that's fine. I met the Crimean Tatars in around 2014-15. I don't remember 100%. I immediately liked them. They were very well-mannered, very nice and awesome people. I also coached their children. So there is a culture, philosophy, history and traditions. They support all of this. They are such cool people. Later, I met the Crimean Tatars directly during one of my combat missions. Unfortunately, I can't talk about this mission. Perhaps, when the war is over, all these feats, both theirs and ours, will be written about in books, though that will be later, after our victory. I can say that they are so fierce, so cool, so motivated and so strong. Even our Ukrainians, our men, have something to learn from them. They are eager to destroy the enemy and liberate their lands. They are fighting till the end. They are very strong people. Their motivation is to defeat our common enemy, so that their children and women, their families could live in peace, and grandchildren were able to see their grandfathers. I know a number of soldiers who are fighting so hard today. They take part in operations many people refuse to do. Though no one talks about it. Why? Because it is forbidden to speak about it. This is first. And secondly, there are many relatives and friends who do not want to give interviews. No one wants to show their face, voice, and so on. They are worried about their relatives and friends in Crimea. This is a huge problem. There was no water to make coffee. I always carry a jazvi, Turkish coffee pot. Every morning I made coffee for myself. In Bakhmut, there was no water. I had my deceased comrade named Farah. A birch tree grew nearby. He shot it and eventually collected some birch sap in a 3-liter jar. I made coffee from the birch sap. It was a terribly disgusting drink, but still. It is very hard when your comrades die. It is so incredibly hard. According to our data, there are about 16 soldiers of Crimean Tatar origin who died as heroes in the Russian-Ukrainian war. A Crimean Tatar soldier was buried in Lviv. He was buried according to Christian customs. I would say that Ukrainians and soldiers certainly buried him with honors, but not according to the Crimean Tatar traditions. Both they and we didn't know that he was a Crimean Tatar. We found out later. Or I'll give you another example. There is a soldier whose call sign is Taras. He is Crimean Tatar. How do we know right away about his origin? Only when we constantly communicate, we do learn about such people.
Недопустимо те, що
It's not allowed to bury Crimean Tatars who profess Islam according to non-Muslim traditions.
ховали за мусульманськими традиціями.
Even if there is a situation when a person does not know who to appeal to, even from the point of view of the canons,
То навіть з точки зору канонів,
from the point of view of Islam,
все дуже просто.
everything is quite simple.
Беруть,
They take him, her as it is, the way a person died, in their uniform. Just take and bury. And that's it. They do nothing. No rituals needed.
людину, яка загинула,
A person who died on the battlefield is a priori forgiven by the Almighty. He does not need a salah, prayer.
я коли тут
When I bury people, unfortunately we have already buried many people here. I always emphasize it.
я завжди це підтримую.
Now we have gathered dear believers to bury such and such a person.
Поховати таку-то людину.
But we must all understand that he doesn't need our prayer for his repose.
В нашій молитві
It is we who need this prayer for him.
потребуємо в цій молитві за нього.
Ukrainian intelligence has stated that there is no doubt that Crimean Tatars will be in the forefront of those who will liberate their native land, Ukrainian Crimea, from Russian occupation forces. Today, the closer I get to Crimea, the more I just know how it is being won back. I just don't feel much joy. I will feel joy when I am there. Probably when I come to Crimea, I will buy a house somewhere in the most remote corner of Crimea. I will shut myself down and remember everything that happened and how it was. All these operations, the war, and I maybe won't go out for a week or so. This is how I will celebrate my return to Crimea for myself. I am not a supporter. I mean, I'm very cautious in my attitude to the offensive. I am very cautious as I realize what the offensive means. First of all, huge sacrifices on our part. I know I am morally ready to resist in any ways, not necessarily the military, or using weapons, any kind of it. Almost all the people are ready. There are collaborators and traders, but they are everywhere. But I know for sure that everyone is ready to resist. If we have the opportunity, we will have reinforcements from the occupied territories. They are just waiting for us. They are preparing somewhere, but they are waiting. I consider that a person must fulfill his duty dictated by honor, national and human dignity, regardless of the possible consequences for him personally. If you do not fulfill your duty, you no longer feel like a normal person. Anyone who is fighting on the Ukrainian side today is fighting on the side of truth and righteousness. No matter what challenges we experience, no matter what disasters we face, and no matter what happens next, with these intentions with which we started to defend and protect our homeland back in 2014, and now, after the beginning of a full-scale invasion, it's even more powerful. We must continue to do so. And we will definitely win. Because the truth always wins. No matter what happens, no matter how hard it is, We must be united, because these are the tests, the first, the second, the third, etc. Truly righteous people from our nation and from the Islamic people overall have always said that Allah tests those whom He loves. Due to all this, Allah is testing us. We will pass this test with dignity and honor, and we will return to our native Crimea. It will become the same as it was. This is the flavor of our mental and beloved Crimea. There would be no us without Crimea. I would like to say to my compatriots that the coming year will probably be the last year of the occupation. I would like to call on collaborators, snitchers and employees of the administration of the occupation authorities without wasting time. As long as this breach exists, as long as there is an opportunity, as long as there are no traffic jams, to leave Crimea quickly. Thanks to the armed forces of Ukraine, we are getting closer to Crimea every day. All Ukrainian citizens who are on the peninsula today should know that the time of their liberation from Russian occupation is coming soon.